Okay, now that we've taken a little bit of time and shown you guys how to go about creating your very own bump-mapped Phong shader, what we're going to do is bring it over into our application.
That's right.
Now, we had planned on taking a little bit of extra timing and just throwing in kind of an additional bonus on top of the bonus of all this extra shading content and showing you how to just map a hotkey to quickly switch back and forth between shaders.
But then we decided, you've done this many times.
Yeah, we're running tight on time. The OpenGL VTM series is now getting very, very long, and it's nothing new.
Right.
Since we've got the shader class that would make it so easy. So we decided to go ahead and leave that out, but instead of just canceling this video altogether, we did want to at least bring this into our application because there's a couple things to show you in regards to the hacked reflection, etc. So let's go ahead and do it.
All right, so first off, I just want to show you the effect that we're trying to go for in our own application. So this is the one we created in the last lesson.
Right.
So let's go ahead and switch over into .NET right here. And let me just show you what we have so far. So our plan is to convert this cube to use that texture there.
Right.
The first thing we did was make sure, copy over the two textures that we had over here. So we copied over this one, this cloud texture, and we copied over this bump map texture.
And be really careful, too. We actually went a step further, and we went into Photoshop and made sure that they were the precise format that our application was taken in. That's right.
When we directly did our texture saver, the texture was a little bit messed up.
Right.
So we had to go into Photoshop and resave it, and then it worked.
And it really wasn't that big of a deal for the color map, but for the normal information, having it messed up even just a little bit completely throws off the way the whole thing looks.
That's
so
right.
It's just a good idea to make sure that it was saved out properly.
Right. And we saved these two out, the cloud, this one as base, and this one we saved out as bump.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and switch back over into Visual Studio here. The first thing we're going to need to do is add an extra texture. We need our texture bump. So, texture bump. Now let's go down a little bit and go down to our texture box here, and let's do another one. This one, of course, is going to be our base, and this one here is going to be our bump. Now, in this case, we're having three textures here, one for our ground, one for our base texture, and one for our bump. So we're going to have to start using multi-texturing here. So the first thing we're going to do, actually let me move this glue end up a little bit, just to get that over with.
Okay.
And then what we're going to do is switch our active texture, ARB, over to GL texture 0, ARB. And then what I'm going to do is bind the floor texture to 0. And the other ones I'm going to bind to 1 and 2. So put this text floor, text ID. And then simply make sure that texturing is enabled on this particular texture unit. All right. Now, here's the cool part. These guys, already done. Works fine. All I need to do is add some extra...
copy the updated?
Actually, let's go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, we will need to do that.
Because that is kind of the steps that we follow in our little diagram.
Exactly.
So let me open the frag and vert. I'll start with my vertex shader. Come over into here, our custom shader. Go into the vertex program here. Just copy this whole thing. Bring it over into here, paste it in. Come over to my fragment program. Control-A, copy. Control-A, paste. Save these two out. And
cool.
Now we have our, the Lambert is still called Lambert, but that doesn't matter.
You guys know we're just not taking the time to name things properly.
Right. So inside of here, let me go ahead and bind the correct textures to the right texture units. So like I said, let me just go ahead and copy this attribute real quick here. And we had two attributes back over in here. We had our ground map and we have our bump map. So we need to set those two attributes. So we have our ground map.
Right.
And we have our bump map. And these are going to be assigned to texture unit 1 and texture unit 2.
Right.
So texture unit 1 needs to have our box. Oh, and this needs to be changed over into text. What is this called? Text bump. Yeah. So text bump. Box, excuse me. Thank you. And this one's going to be texture unit 2 and text bump.
Sweet. Very simple.
And now we have the same as we had before, except a few new attributes.
Yeah, because if we don't set our specular power in specular, it's going to cause all sorts of interesting problems.
Right. By default, the specular color is going to be black, so none of the specular highlights are going to even turn up. So let's copy and paste this. And this is going to be our specular power. And we'll set this to 2.0F. And this is a F attribute, floating attribute. And specular, much the same as our diffuse and ambient, and this is going to be 0.5 for each. All right. I think that's everything. And let me go ahead and set my active texture back over to 0 so that when it draws the floor.
Right now our diffuse is also like really red. Let's go ahead, now that we're not going to be switching back, let's go ahead and just do 0.4. There we go.
Good idea, yeah. And let me set the active texture back to 0.
Okay.
So look at that. We've already, with just a little bit of code change, switched it over to our new texture, our new shader. Let me go down to our draw cube. I don't need to do this anymore because, well, it's not going to switch. It's always on texture unit 1 and 2. So I could just delete that out. And let me go down to here. That's all good.
Before we do the little hack at the bottom, let's just show them what it looks like, since the whole reflection is a hack.
Right. All right, so...
Look at that.
Look at that.
Oof. Well, you got to zoom in up close on that. Oh, yeah.
Nice reflections all the way around.
Zoom in close, man. Get up next to one of the walls. Yeah.
It's kind of hard to do.
Oh, I see. It's because we're moved up, and I see our target of focus is at the 0.
Oh, but look at that right there.
Yeah.
Oh, right there.
Of course, it's going to look a little bit different than over in the other application right now, for the simple fact that our texture coordinates are... Well, we played with them by, scaling the top up and the bottom. Except, you know what I'm saying.
But it's right.
Yeah, it is.
So the hack that Buzz was mentioning just a second ago was that we're not getting the exact same lighting information on the top and bottom.
Right.
Simply because our light is not getting scaled to -1.
Precisely.
So what we're going to do is go down to our draw scene here, and where we switch the lights around, we're also going to switch the light position. So actually, let me go up real quick here and grab the light position here. And we're just going to invert the Y coordinate for this one. So right here, before we draw the cube, we're just going to switch this over to negative, and then right after we're done with that, switch it back. Like so. And let me just go ahead and compile this, run it, and check it out. The lighting information is now exactly the same on top and bottom.
So very nice.
I'm getting nice specular reflections right there.
Yeah, zoom in a little closer. I like that, man. It's nice. Like, oh, yeah. It's cool. Anyways, guys, here we are working with an application that started out as a clean slate way back at the beginning of all of these VTMs. And we've worked up to the point where now we have a cube that has multiple textures, and we're actually supporting normal mapping data now.
Right.
Which is really nice. And simulated reflections as well. So a lot of different things going on. And with that, that's pretty much going to wrap up the shader work that we're going to do inside of .NET.
Right.
Now what we're going to do in the next video, which will be the last video in the shader videos, we're going to take a look at just some things you can do.
Right.
It's going to give you guys ideas. It's inspiration. It's a bonus video that we've decided to throw in that was never intended to be there.
Right.
But we think you guys might find some of our directions useful, like how do you go about adding a light intensity so you can control the intensity of the light? Or how do you do things that cause animation effects to occur in your shader? So I think you guys will enjoy it. And again, it's just a bonus for you. So that's going to wrap it up here, and we'll meet you guys back in the next video over inside of Render Monkey.